Hey, saltwater anglers, and welcome to the Lower Chesapeake Bay Fishing Report, your local report, whether it's good, bad, or ugly. This podcast is part of the Great Days Outdoors Network, and each week we'll be talking to local experts to learn ways we can become better anglers in our pursuits offshore, nearshore, and inshore. To keep this amazing fishery healthy and thriving for generations to come, remember to protect what you pursue. Summer fishing is fired up with warm water and hungry fish moving into the bay. So let's hear who's making the show possible, and then we'll jump into the reports. Check it out. AFTCO has a gift for our listeners. They're now offering a camo sunglasses cleaner cloth with any purchase of AFTCO products. For cool mornings, I love my Reaper sweatshirt. And on those hot days, my Samurai sun shirt. You just can't beat the quality and performance. All you got to do to get your coupon code is text LCBFR to 779-345-2918 to get subscribed to our email list, and we'll send you the promo code via email. Boaters know that the unexpected can happen anytime. That's why Seatow offers 24/7 on-water assistance with priority service for members. Whether it's a dead battery, running out of fuel, or needing a tow, Seatow's fleet is ready to help. Membership includes unlimited towing with no distance or dollar limits in your home area, fuel delivery, jump starts, and more. Plus, members receive exclusive discounts on fuel, electronics, dockage, and boat insurance. With over 500 ports nationwide, Seatow has you covered wherever you boat. Join today at seatow.com and boat with confidence. All right, guys, before we kick off this week's show, I got a special announcement to make. The Peninsula Saltwater Sport Fishermen's Association is hosting a sheep's head tournament, and it's going to be on Saturday, July the 19th, 2025. And to find out more information about this, go to pswsfa.com. We'll also drop that in the show notes. It's going to be hosted by Wallace's Bait and Tackle. Tony and his team over there always do a fantastic job with tournaments of all types. So great location, great organization, and a really fun time to compete for Sheep's Head. And the tournament details are as follows. There's going to be a first, second, and third place prize. $1,600 and $400 accordingly. There are optional Calcuttas available for $100. And there's a really cool prize, a toad prize, which is going to be a $100 prize for the heaviest oyster toad. So we'll drop the online registration information as well as the website in the show notes. So check it out. And with that, we're going to hop into this week's show. All right, saltwater anglers, here we go. It is, first week of July, second week of July. We just had 4th of July last week. The fishing was interesting. You know, the tuna fishing was crazy good there for a little while, and we had this great start pop to the cobia and drum, and then everything just fell flat on its nose and was tough, really tough. Lots of reports of virtually seeing no fish, but there's this one captain who, grinds it out and manages to find, good opportunities and connect. So excited to bring him on the show. He's been on the show several times. Good friend of the show, Captain Travis Kemp with Foolproof Fishing. Captain Trav, how we doing tonight, brother?
Oh, we're a little tired, but we're all right.
Tired?
Yeah. It's 13 hours yesterday and another full day today. It wears on you in this heat.
It has been a little humid these past few days. But I want to kind of get this first thing out of the way. So you guys put a video up yesterday of you guys fighting a cobia. And I was just looking at it because I'd heard through the grapevine that it was this really cool video. I went to go look at it, and it's already got over 1 million views on Facebook Reels. Tell our listeners that, what happened? What in the world did you catch, and how did this video get 1 million views?
Well, I have no idea about the views. Like I said, I looked at it this morning, and it had like 100,000, and then I've been on the water all day. I just looked at my phone and saw it had blown up. But yeah, we had already caught quite a few cobia yesterday, and we're on the way to go try to find some drum, and found some bait balls, and we went to a couple of them, and we had caught one fish out of one, and came around to another and threw in there and hooked a nice cobia. It ended up being 51 inches
Wow.
out of this bait ball. And, you got clients that haven't, caught fish like that in a while, and the fish was obviously very angry and dug down deep and, sounded. And when the fish came up to the surface, about 45 seconds later, this big old sand tiger shark came slinking up behind it.
Wow. How big would you estimate that sand tiger shark to be? I mean, judging by the video and knowing that you said the cobia ended up being 51 inches.
Yeah, it was over 8 foot. I mean, it was a grown one. When I first saw it, I thought it was her. You know, I thought it like coming up from the depths. I was like, "There's my 150-pound cobia right there."
You're like, here it
I
is.
grabbed my rod for a second. Yeah, I grabbed my
Oh
rod for a second. I was like, "Look at that thing."
man, that's crazy to think about. I'm actually curious how much a mature sand tiger shark weighs. Um, well, if you had to guess, what would you
Well,
guess that it weighs?
well, from my surf fishing experience, those sand tigers. Unfortunately, I've pulled on a lot of those and caught a lot of them.
Hmm.
I've lost a lot of 8-ounce sinkers to them.
Hmm.
That one right there, very well I could have caught before, but you know, a full grown one like that, I mean, it had to be over 300 pounds.
Yeah. Yep. I'm actually looking
Had to
at
be 300, 400 pounds, maybe more. I
yeah.
mean, I know they get bigger, but
Well, the research on them I'm looking at shows that they usually are 6.5 to 10.5 feet in length, with females being even larger sometimes, and they're typically in excess of 350 to 400 pounds. So that's a big animal to have right next to the boat like that. Was there ever a moment where you like felt the need to like make sure everybody was like staying inside the boat, staying safe?
no, 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 not with a sand tiger. Once I knew it was a sand tiger, you know, the running joke with the sand tigers, it's like the North Carolina, Virginia nurse shark. You
Hmm.
know, they're just a big slug. They're very slow, lethargic. You know, it was never going to actually try to eat the cobia. It was just hanging out with it, you know, being buddies.
Got it. Yeah.
Um, you know, there's people that swim with them all the time. They're very, very docile.
Yeah, there's actually research that shows that cobia are frequently seen hanging out with sand tiger sharks in the same way that they hang out with rays, turtles, and whale sharks, which is kind of a funny segue into some of the commentary on this video of folks, you know, I don't know what's going through their minds. You know, everybody's got a different personality when they get behind a keyboard, so to speak, but the Kobe was never
Yeah.
in danger. But what are tell me about some
No.
of the comments about your poor mate getting just all this heat when he was
Oh
doing a
man.
perfect job waiting for the right moment, and people don't understand how much
Yeah.
drag a net has.
No, my man John's getting roasted on the internet for no reason. Like this fish was super green. We probably had only had it on, like I said, for less than a minute, and it came up to the surface, and I was like, try to get that thing away from the shark. You know, not really thinking at the time, you know, that it's a sand tiger and it's not going to eat it, but. And he went for a way early net job. And like I said, you know, you got clients that said, don't do this every day. Now, keep in mind, my guys were pretty good anglers yesterday. But you know, the fish came towards the net, and as soon as I was like, try to get a shot, and he went for it, and the fish just did a 180 and swam away. You know, he didn't even have a real shot at it. And there's everybody's fire the net man, the net guy's a clown, all this nonsense. It's like y'all have no idea. John has probably netted more cobia than most people have ever seen in their lives.
Right, right. John's been your mate for how long now?
3 years.
3 years.
3 years. So
So,
we've been fishing together since 2015. So, you know, 10 years we've been catching cobias together.
right. So that's a lot. That's a lot of netting cobias. So if anybody has the
Yeah.
right to say anything about how to net a cobia, it would be John, not the fine folks, you know, pecking away at a keyboard. But I just wanted to address that because I thought it was funny how often people are willing to comment on things when they really aren't the subject matter expert to make an opinion, but
No.
uh, nonetheless
Put it
entertaining,
this
shall we
way.
say?
Put it put it this way. On charters last year, I keep logs of all of my fish.
Hmm.
On charters last year, we had 529 cobias during the season on charters, and we never lost a fish at the net ever.
Hold on a
And
second.
John netted every single one of them.
Say that again slowly. How many total cobias?
Just last year, in what 69 cobia trips, 529,
Uh-huh.
and John netted every single one of them except for a couple days when Greg helped me out.
Uh-huh.
And we've never lost a fish at the net in 3 years of doing this.
Wow. Wow, that's I mean, I'm knocking on wood for you, but there's obviously some things you can't control, but to your point, that's a really great testimony to the communication and consistency that you and John execute with when you've got a fish boat side, which is kind of talk us through that. That's a combination of things, right? There's verbal communication, there's operating the vessel, there's controlling the angler, and then controlling the net. So like, how do you guys
Yeah.
how do you guys achieve that kind of a rate of success?
Well, there's times when a fish, I mean, we've had a couple fish that have pulled off boat side, like the hook flies out of its mouth before he ever goes for a shot at the net.
Hmm.
And you always, hindsight's 2020. Maybe I should have taken a shot. He knows there's instincts on when you go for that shot to try to net the fish. And you're holding a net that's, I think it's 41 inches is the hoop on this net,
Hmm.
and you're trying to net a fish that's flopping around on the surface, angry as can be. You got to know when to go, and
Mm.
you have that instinct. And I try to position the fish where it's right there where he can get in front of it and get it head first into the net. I'll keep the boat in gear if I have to. I'll do turns, whatever you need to do to get him the cleanest shot possible. And we always, he coaches the angler. He's really good at coaching the anglers through what to do when the fish gets close to the boat so that he can get a good shot.
Right. That thing you just said is probably the most important thing. I struggle with that when I'm fishing because I get a little impatient or just expect people to maybe have the same instinct, but they're not experienced enough to have it yet. But being a patient
No.
coach is probably the most important thing. So him being down there and knowing, the right things to say to that person, because a lot of times anglers we kind of like see red, when they're in the heat of the moment. So I'm sure he's got some good like analogies or things, or ways that he says it to the angler that
Yeah.
helps them to do
Keep.
exactly what they're supposed to.
Yep. Get all the way in the back corner of the boat. So if the fish does a dive towards the motor, you can get and go around it. Keep him away from the trim tabs. Try to keep the rod, perpendicular to the side of the boat, straight out the side.
Hmm.
Don't point the rod towards the bow. Don't point the rod towards the motor. Try to keep it perpendicular to the side of the boat. I will try to position the boat to keep the fish right there. And then that way, when it comes up, John's in front of him, and it's swimming towards the bow, and he can get a nice head first shot with the net.
Yep, that makes perfect sense. It's funny watching this video of the shark and the cobia. If you watch it through the lens of these guys being friends in the water, it takes on a totally different connotation because there's actually a few seconds at the very beginning of the video where if that shark wanted to take a bite out of that cobia, he very easily could have. And then the rest of the
Oh yeah,
video, you almost see this like I don't know, this sense of like concern from the sand tiger shark, like he's almost like hanging out, like I'm here for you, buddy. Just tag
yeah,
me in if you need a
yeah. Where's my
hand.
friend going?
Yeah,
Yeah, where's my friend going?
what a cool experience. I mean, you've been fishing for a long, long time. I mean, have you ever seen a shark that big on a cobia trip in the Chesapeake Bay?
Not inside the bay. I've seen them. I've seen them on hammerheads and tiger sharks down in the Outer Banks, but in the bay, I haven't seen a shark that big in the bay before.
Mm-mm.
I've hooked stuff bottom fishing for drum, in the fall around the islands, chunking baits, but that was different to see.
Yeah,
I've hooked some sandbars in that 5-6 foot range, but that was a big old sand tiger, and it was in the bay.
that's It's something special, which is obviously why it's got, a million plus views and it'll probably continue to go. It's fun to kind of just watch that sort of thing happen. We live in a special place and we have a special fishery. And it's cool that something like that happened to one of our own and getting a little cred for it, which is awesome. But talk us
Yeah.
through some of your other
When I
trips.
first, when,
Oh, go ahead.
no, I was just going to say when I first posted it, I was not intending any of that to happen. I more or less posted it so that my friends could laugh at my goofy commentary, watching me kind of get all googly over this big sand tiger in the bay.
Yeah, you've got a couple of funny moments where you do a really, really good job of not dropping an F-bomb, even though I know it was right on the tip of your tongue.
Yeah, I had to self edit myself.
You said you had a young lady on the boat, a 10-year-old.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. I had a,
Yeah.
had a young lady on the boat trying to not be a talk like a sailor. You know what I mean? Got to keep
Yep.
it under wraps.
Yep. Ladies and gentlemen, you heard it here first. Foolproof fishing, PG when needed. Um,
Yeah,
so
absolutely.
looking back at some of your other trips recently, man, I see gigantic red drum and even a huge flounder. What have you guys been doing to find the drum and the flounder, but especially that flounder? I mean, that's a pretty rare catch. You don't see foolproof targeting those too often. How did you guys get a hold of that flounder? Was that a fluke, pun intended, or were you targeting
Yeah,
it?
yeah, it was more or less a fluke. Um, I was actually casting into a school of red drum that I had seen on the surface. I'd seen the color of them. They were deep, but you could see them,
Uh-huh.
and they were not eating our bucktails. So he threw a live fish in there, and the fish, I guess, swam to the bottom and found himself in a bad position, and up comes a 24-inch flounder.
No way. So you were trying to catch a cobia or a drum with a live
A
bait,
drum, yeah,
a drum with a live bait, like a finfish or something on a jig or a hook or whatever, and then it found its way to the bottom and a flounder ate it.
yeah, absolutely,
That's awesome.
absolutely. It was we can catch flounders.
Yeah.
We've done it before. But most people that book me here, want the cobia and the drum. It's kind of what I've made my name around. But we
Hmm.
can certainly do all types of fishing. But that was pretty funny, pretty special to catch a flounder like that, trying to catch a red drum. We were
That
all kind of laughing at that.
that is pretty special. And you've been fishing for a long time now. You do a ton of surf fishing. You've got some incredible awards and trophies for some, drum surf fishing competitions for numbers and all sorts of cool things. But I'm just curious, the last week has been really tough, and a lot of captains. I've talked to yourself, Captain Austin
Grind.
Hain, Captain Caleb on Naughty Dog. I've talked to Captain Robbie on Real Release, Captain Andy Kim with Sashimi. Everyone is just saying it's been so tough. I experienced it. I went out there last weekend and, you know, four fish for 8 hours of looking. I mean, you're kind of like one of the self-proclaimed, fish nerds and you like the science. Like, what do you think is going on that's making it so tough right now?
I wish I had the answer to that because it's been a grind. Obviously social media makes it look good. But I try to be as honest as I can with my post. Like yesterday, yes, we caught 8 cobia yesterday, but we only saw 9 cobia. We just made the shots that we needed to have count. And then, today I had a 55 incher and a 50 incher in the box, but we only saw 4 cobia today. I got out there later than I should have. People caught their fish early, and it was a grind, but we got it done. It's been
Mm,
tough, and I don't know why. I don't know if the fish are on the bottom. There's definitely a huge factor versus last year, which was an excellent year, a large lack of bait fish. We're
hmm.
just now starting to get some schools of menhaden. There's been a lot of rain bait around, stuff like that in the bay. There's no Spanish mackerel. We've had some big bluefish, but not much for bait fish. Not any of the as many threadfin schools as we were seeing last year. It's
Hmm.
just kind of a desert out there most days.
Man, that's
So
tough. I
I
mean,
don't know if it's bait or what.
do you think that the windmill bases could be somehow affecting the ecosystem or adjusting the ecosystem in some way?
It's certainly going to change migrational patterns because uh, fish are going to if the fish that come in from offshore are going to find those, and if that can hold them for the summer and they're happy out there, why would they go anywhere else? There's
Yeah,
no fences in the ocean and fish have tails. They're going to go where they want.
right, right. Yeah, they don't use GPS or plug anything into maps and let Siri
Negative.
navigate them into the lower Chesapeake Bay, even though we wish they could. Um, but
Yeah.
man, it definitely has been a grind. I hope and pray, that we see some changes here soon as, maybe some water temperatures kind of like settle down. I think we also had a really fast heat up, which didn't help either. I think a lot of fish that
No.
might be around are just kind of down on the bottom. Maybe the chummers could tell
Yeah.
a different
I mean,
story.
yep. Think about it like Florida. They don't see cobias on the surface hardly at all anymore. Yes, they do see them. I'm not saying they don't, But a
Mm-hmm.
lot of the cobias are with sharks. They're with stingrays. They're on wrecks. You hook one and 10 come up. It's a lot of fish are deep right now, and I think it has a lot to do with the fact that the water temperature, the surface temperature, got so hot so fast. I don't know if
Mm.
the fish are all down, or if there's fish that are way up the bay where it's cooler, or they're up in Delaware or Jersey or New York,
Yeah.
or they're sitting offshore in the windmills. I wish I knew, but time's gonna tell.
Yeah.
Usually August kind of things happen, and we start to see more of a concentration, and
Mm-hmm.
it's either going to be good or it's going to be really bad. That's all
Yeah.
there is to it.
And now we're what? Almost a month into the season of the harvest season, and we're operating under the new VMRC regulations with the minimum size being 43 inches, the daily boat limit being 2 fish uh, per boat per day, as long as you have at least, 2 passengers on your boat. Has it made it more difficult, less difficult, same difficulty level to get a limit for your charters?
Oh
Or
yeah,
yeah.
it's definitely made it tougher. I mean, I have, you know, there is no lies or no hero stories here. I mean, I've had 3 trips where I have not caught a keeper, and I've had 2 or 3 fish that would have been keepers last year caught. Just
Mm,
last week, I caught 8 cobia one day, 8, and only had 1 keeper in the box, but I had 4 that would have been keepers last year.
oof, that's tough.
So that goes to show right there that it's definitely making a difference. It's tough,
It
or
is.
you only see 6 fish in a day and catch 4, and they're all between 40 and 43 inches.
Right. Yeah, that was my experience, one of my recent trips. And honestly, it kind of made me think a little bit about adjusting some of my fishing. If it's not a for sure keeper, like if it's questionable, I'm probably going to stick to throwing a jig because, we caught one that was 42 and a half inches and tried, for about 2 minutes to get the hook out, but, it swallowed it and it was, pretty much gut hooked, and we had to cut the line and hope that the hook rust out. But, very questionable whether that fish survived or not. And so, mortality on release is definitely something to consider. So, I know for myself as a recreational angler, going to be probably throwing a lot more artificial at those tweener size fish, just because I don't really want to have to deal with that, feeling like I'm putting a fish back that's probably going to die.
Well, I'm probably going to get roasted for saying this, but we have joined we have joined Team Circle Hook this year, and we have not had any gut hooks, and we have not pulled a fish off since switching to Circle Hook. So,
I am so glad you said that because I had forgotten about that too. And comically, shout out to my buddy Cody, call sign Shart. There's a story there. He's a fighter pilot, but he's from Florida, and he made me tie on some circle hooks towards the end of last year, as well as Cat Moss to McDonald. And when I pulled my rods out this year, I was like, "Why are there circle hooks on my rods?" So I just went fishing with them like that, and yeah, didn't hook that one that we were talking about on one of my rods. That was on one of my buddy's rods, but that's a good reminder that we can fish with circle hooks, and that pretty much eliminates that gut hook. So thanks for shouting that out.
yeah. Well, I don't certainly don't want this to become a you have to fish with circle hooks conversation. Trust me, I love a J hook and a treble just as much as the next guy.
Yeah,
But the circle hooks have been working for me, so I'm gonna stick with them.
yeah.
And that comes from Mr. Fineo, Austin Hain. The other day I was fishing that tournament, the East Coast Cobia Championship. And I
Uh-huh.
don't usually do tournaments, but I had a client that wanted to do them, so we did it.
Hmm.
And we actually hooked a fish that I believe would have been in the top 3, if not,
Hmm.
the top fish, and had it hooked up and handed down, and the client was fighting it, and it pulled off after about 20 seconds of the fight. And that
Oh,
Austin gave me the old should have had a circle hook and just rubbed it in my face. So I went and bought a pack of circle hooks the next day.
I remember last year we got into it, man. I mean, we were putting like Gamakatsu next to BKKs, next to VMCs, next to whatever the Ocean's East or Long Bay Point brand. I mean, we were like, you know, size of the barb, how sharp the owner hook, and we did determine that
Mm-hmm.
of all the J hooks, well, I won't say it. I'm just curious. If you put a VMC next to an owner, next to a Gamakatsu, um, what was the other one? Next to a BKK.
Uh,
BKK. So
yeah,
BKK,
BKK.
Gamakatsu, VMC, and owner. Least to favorite hook for a J hook. Where would you be? What would be your least
Oh
favorite?
man, that's tough. Least favorite? Yamagata.
Okay. Mine's the owner.
Least favorite Yamagata.
Okay.
I used owner J's for the last 2 years, so I've been an owner guy, but I don't like how small the barb is on an owner. The owners are the
That's,
sharpest, but I
yep.
don't like how small the barb is. The VMC love the barb, but they never stay sharp. You got to have a file on your boat.
Yep. Yep.
BKKs never used them, never looked at them. Now, a little side note here: mustads, stay sharp, have a big barb, but I don't like the way their hooks are. I don't like their J hooks.
Mm.
It's hard to find a nice mustad J hook.
Yeah, I'm trying to remember. I think we settled on the BKK, and it was because the actual hook point, if you looked at it, almost like when you think about a knife edge, the difference between like a feather edge or I forget the other terminology. Like the owner point is actually kind of like squatty, and then all of a sudden comes to a point real fast. It's like a rounded point, if you will. And then the
Mm-hmm.
BKK and even the Gamakatsu a little bit, but definitely the VMC, they have these longer needlepoint type, points, which, for a cobia, their mouth being hard, you need that penetration to happen. And we just feel like I don't know, for lack of better terms, penetrates easier. And then I played around with for a while fishing with 5.0 J hooks because it was like, okay, we're going to think hypodermic needle. Let's really get in there, get some purchase, in that harder, cartilage. So we could talk
Mm-hmm.
this thing till we're blue in the face. But to your point,
Oh yeah, fish nerd stuff.
yes, but to your point, and I do agree with you that if you deploy a circle hook properly and you know what you're doing, it's, if a fish eats, it's really hard to not have a successful hookup with a circle hook if they eat.
Yeah, but it does. If they eat it and you do everything right, you just reel tight. Don't get crazy with it. Make sure they're swimming away from you. You do what you're supposed to do. It's a pretty good success ratio. Now, it's
Right.
not as fun because it's really fun to yank on that J hook and just dig it in. But
Right.
it works. It
Yep.
works. So we're going to stick with it for now.
It
Me
does.
and Austin used to call it the hook crisis of July, when the fish would get all weird and start short striking, and you'd pull a bunch off. We would change hooks every day. Like, we got to do something different. This ain't working.
Oh yeah.
But we've settled down and settled on circles for now.
Yeah, you might have me thinking. So on the hooks conversation, which circle hook are you using right now that you like the most?
I can't tell you that.
Okay. But it's in the shape of a circle,
No,
right?
no, I'm using owners right now.
Okay. Got it.
I'm using an owner circle hook, an inline true owner circle hook,
Got
not an
it. Okay.
offset and inline.
Got it. Got
And
it.
there's also some eagle claws that I've tinkered with too that I like.
Hmm.
You know, so
The inline,
that's where we're
and
at now.
you make a good, I think the inline is a great tip too, because I have had several pull-offs with the offset J, and that was another thing that we considered. When I tell you we nerded out, I mean, we put these hooks side by side and analyzed them. The offset, that was one thing that Austin and I talked about last year one time, how we were noticing that, like, man, we had four pull offs in a row, and it wasn't until we pulled up and looked at our hook and realized that one of our bill dances, when we yanked real hard, the tip was in the fish's mouth funny, and we actually increased the offset. And so what was happening is you weren't
Yeah,
getting proper straight pull on that hook point, and that's why we were pulling them off. So it's just a good reminder to like analyze your tackle, analyze your hook, analyze your leader, make sure your stuff's in order, and you're going to probably have better hookup ratios.
yeah, yep. And I will say too, with the offsets, I feel like you lose fish once you get the fish straight up and down next to the boat. Because when you have that straight up and down line angle and the fish rolls, it almost, it's like it unhooks the fish, you know?
Yeah. Yeah, I can see that.
It rolls,
Kind of
rolls the
imagine
hook
it.
out of its mouth.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Whereas the circle hook's typically in past the barb, in the corner of the mouth, where you kind of have the most, I don't know what the word is, free play without consequence.
Yeah, that's right.
Yeah. Very, very cool. So as we kind of wrap up this report, the drum, they're starting to show up. We've seen some videos of some huge schools. In your opinion,
Yeah.
anecdotally, is it a water temperature thing? Is it a bait presence thing, or is it just pattern and habit?
Well, the drum school yesterday that was blowing up on the surface in the bay was 100% a bait thing because they were actively feeding on menhaden on the surface.
Okay.
And there was menhaden flying out of the water, and there was probably, just as many giant bluefish feeding in the same area as the drum. I mean, we threw 6 rods into this drum school yesterday that were just frothing on the surface. And we hooked 3 drum, broke one off that I don't know if it was a drum or what, but it broke off, caught 1 giant bluefish, and got bit off by another giant bluefish. So out of 6 rods, we landed 3 drum and a giant bluefish, and the other 2 came back with braid flying in the air.
Oh man. Well, that's definitely exciting. Do you think that these drum are kind of here to stay for the summer? I know it seems like it took them a while to get active, in contrast to years past.
Yeah. I think they're here to stay. I mean, we caught a few of them today. It's definitely not. It's not as easy as it was before, but we've been, grinding it out and finding them in different spots this year, which it's been working out for us. So hopefully we can keep it on rolling through the summer.
That's awesome, man. Well, this has been a really cool report. Again, congratulations on such a cool video and its success just in the past 24 hours, getting shared around with, fish lovers and of all types from, I mean, obviously 1 million+ people have stared at it now. So that's some people are enjoying that. It's good to see it coming from one of our own. Folks that are listening that have never gotten to hear your voice before, Captain Travis with Foolproof Fishing, tell us about your boat, your operation, and how folks can get up with you to book a trip.
Well, I have a 25-foot Southern Cross, very, wide, comfortable boat for what we do here in the bay. If anybody wants to get up with me for any kind of trip, you can give me a call, 252-435-5967. Check out my socials on Instagram, Facebook. Still haven't got a website up. I haven't had time, but that's coming. Yeah. And as of right now, I got a few days left towards the middle of September open, and I still will do 3-hour evening trips every now and again. And after the Cobia season closes, I'll be running some drum trips, trying to catch sheepshead, flounder. That's when we mix it up and do different species. Once the Cobia season closes, or if they're still around, we'll do catch and release Cobia. And the plan this year is, it's already been worked out. Hopefully nothing changes. At the end of October or middle of October, I'll move the boat to the river and get after them speckled trouts.
Oh yeah, that's your other big passion is those big speckled trouts, and that's a ton of fun on light tackle. So you are out of Little Creek. Little Creek is where you are out of, and then when you talk about the river, you're talking about the Elizabeth River up there in Norfolk, correct?
Yes, sir.
Awesome.
Yep. I fish out of Morning Star Marina in Little Creek, and that's where I'm at till the end of October.
Very cool. Well, Captain Travis, I always enjoy getting to chat with you. I feel like I always learn something or I'm reminded of a good nugget of wisdom. I appreciate and value the way that you pay attention to your details and you count how many trips and you count how many fish. You're a real student of what you do, which I think is a big part of your success. So thanks for being on the show and giving us a great report.
Yes, sir. I appreciate it. Thanks for having me.
Absolutely. Folks, that's going to wrap up a great segment, catching up with Captain Travis. He's been having some fun. Go watch his socials. We were joking about it a couple of episodes back. His XL, his XXL sizing capacity. So if you want to see some big fish coming to the side of a boat and most likely getting netted successfully, go check him out. Always a good time to watch his socials. That's going to wrap up a really cool segment. Stick around for a quick word from our sponsors, and we got a very cool special segment coming up for you next. Stay tuned. Whether you're hitting the sand with set rigs using the traditional scent strips for pompano or fishing the flats or marshes for speckled trout, redfish, and flounder, Fish Bites has something for you. They're family owned and operated in St. Augustine, Florida, and pride themselves on making reliably consistent fishing products for anglers of all ages around the world. Fish Bites bait and lures are made with pride in the Sunshine State, USA. Check out the full line of scented saltwater and freshwater baits at fishbites.com. Upgrade your waterfront with Killer Doc's premium dock furniture, built to last a lifetime in marine conditions. Crafted from marine-grade aluminum with a protective anti-corrosion coating, it's tough enough to handle the elements while providing unmatched comfort. Featuring sunbrella cushions with fast-drying, removable covers, our furniture stays securely in place even in storms. Choose from cabanas, club chairs, love seats, tables, and more to create your perfect dockside retreat. Durability meets elegance at Killer Doc. Check out the full collection at killerdoc.com today. Looking to protect your dock with materials built to last? Shoreline Plastics has you covered. As leaders in composite marine dock pilings and building materials, they engineer solutions that stand the test of time. Their EcoPile is the ultimate composite piling designed for longevity and eco-friendliness, ensuring your dock remains strong for years. And if you need a quick fix for worn pilings, try Snap Jacket, a durable solution that restores and extends their life. Visit shorelineplastics.com to discover how you can elevate your next marine project. Shoreline Plastics, where durability meets innovation. Well, guys, welcome to this week's episode, and it's actually a special segment. I'm excited to dive into this topic because it's near and dear to my heart. It's also something that a lot of folks don't know that goes on behind the scenes of, all sorts of things. You've probably watched Maury, you've seen the big fishing tournaments, and then, of course, in the courtroom. But polygraph testing and court-certified polygraph testing at that is really interesting. So I'm excited today to have Mr. David Goldberg with Executive Protection Group Polygraph Service on the show to talk about all things polygraphing. So welcome to the show, man. How you doing?
I'm fine. Thank you so much for having me on your podcast. It really means a lot to me.
Well, it was cool. We were out there at the Virginia Beach Tuna Tournament hosted by, Bob Sinclair and his team. And the scales were absolutely mayhem. We talked to Bob on a recent episode, and he was like, I wasn't expecting to weigh 8,000 pounds of tuna fish. And you were there hanging out, and we got a chance to meet and talk a little bit. And I was like, you know what? I've always wondered what goes into polygraphing in a fishing tournament. So I got to meet this guy. Got to get a chance to dig into his brain.
Yeah, it was kind of neat. I mean, and yeah, that line, he had never seen that line back up. I mean, he had so many boats, so many participants in his tournament. I've been doing his tournament for so long, and I met you. You invited me on your podcast, and I said yes right away.
Here we are. So, just for our listeners, I got to meet you, and I was like, man, I got a million questions for you. But, could you just give us a brief idea of your background prior to the polygraphing business? Who are you? Where'd you come from? How'd you get into this? When did polygraphing tickle your brain and turn into a reality?
Sure. Well, I mean, I guess it all started when I was in the military. So after the military, I got out, and then I went into law enforcement. And then after law enforcement, I became a detective while in law enforcement. I worked in homicide. Mm-hmm. I worked in sexual assaults. And then, of course, we had a polygraph unit, and I wanted to join that polygraph unit. But there was a lot of old-time polygraph examiners, so you had to wait your turn. But I saw a really big niche as a polygraph examiner to really help solve a lot of cases, more so. So I finally got the chance when there were some examiners that retired. I kept volunteering, please send me. So I finally got that opportunity, which I was really grateful for. And then while I went to school and I graduated, I was the go-to guy for polygraph testing. And I solved a lot of cases and helped a lot of individuals, and victims as well. It wasn't not just solving, cases, but it was also protecting the innocent as well.
Right. Or they're wrongly accused.
Absolutely, 100%. And so afterwards, I saw that there would be a very, very big demand for people outside of being criminally charged or convicted to help people. So I decided to expand after my police career and open my own business and help thousands and thousands of individuals who are falsely convicted, accused of you name it, for everything, to clear their name, get closure. And that's what I've been doing now for 24 years.
That's cool, man. It's neat to hear about the Navy experience and the detective experience because, and we're going to get into it too, like how to become court certified. But obviously you've had real hands-on experience with, the police process of, going through and, looking at evidence and interviewing witnesses. And so you've got that kind of big picture overview that you then were able to take with you into the educational process you went through. So what does it take from a certification standpoint to become court certified polygraph, examiner like you are now?
Sure. It's number one, it's not every examiner is court certified.
Got it.
Without a doubt. Number one, my law enforcement background helps tremendously. That's number one. Second, as a polygraph examiner, once you go through your basic training and your certification, you have to do continuing credited education.
Got it.
So that has to be ongoing. Then what happens is you get advanced certifications. And then, of course, at some point in that time frame, you have to then go in front of the courts and actually testify as a certified polygraph examiner. Meaning, as an advanced polygraph examiner, I have to go in front of a court where everyone says, "Oh, polygraphs aren't admitted."
Right.
I hear that. I can't tell you, probably 1,000 times, a month. Even online. No, polygraphs are bogus. They can't be used. They can't be admitted. I keep telling people that's wrong. It can be. I've testified. So if I've testified in court as a polygraph examiner for polygraph examinations that I've admitted, then I know I'm not dreaming. I know I'm not,
Right. We could hook you up and
exactly.
test you on that. It's like people have to really understand that there's a sort of separation between the polygraph mechanics and process itself from what the examiner is extracting from that data. So if I'm hearing you correctly, it's like, yeah, you could say the polygraph itself maybe isn't admissible, of course, but when it's paired with a professional examiner, that is what is allowed.
And you hit it on the nose. And I tell this to everyone, and I don't hold back. The charts are never going to be admitted as evidence. The charts.
Right.
Okay? That's not going to be admitted. What's going to be admitted is the examiner's professional opinion, his professional polygraph report, and his credibility, his certifications,
right,
and his experience.
Right.
And if he's testified and the judge deems him a subject matter expert, then he becomes a court certified expert in his field. That's how you become a court certified polygraph examiner expert.
Got it. So that's like on the extreme end of things in terms of you're dealing with, criminal and civil court cases, difficult topics like sexual assaults you mentioned or being wrongfully accused. So where does a fishing tournament kind of enter the scene for you as a polygraph examiner?
Sure. Well, as a polygraph examiner, and I would say as an experienced polygraph examiner, you need to be able to test on every kind of issue that's out there. Every issue. You can't just have blinders on like a horse and just focus on one kind of issue. And there are examiners that only do that. Okay. There are examiners that will only do pre-employment. There are examiners that may only do infidelity. But that limits people's issues out there. And it also limits that examiner for experience purposes. So me as an examiner, I can do and deal with every kind of issue out there. So how it works is the fishing tournaments promoters, they would call and they would say, hey, have you ever done a fishing tournament, or can you do a fishing tournament? And I would say, yeah, absolutely. Are you familiar with fishing? And of course, I do love fishing.
Yeah.
So, and I would say you would have to like fishing, and you would have to like some kind of sports, because I also have done, natural bodybuilding, polygraphs as well.
Okay.
So
find out if they're on the steroids
correct,
or their growth
absolutely,
hormones.
without doubt. So you have to be somewhat into athletics in order to understand, because if I didn't understand the dynamics, I would think that someone could lie to me.
Right, because you don't understand the context of the questions that you're asking, or the specific nuances that might go into something unique, like the human training, programs, or the fishing.
Without a doubt.
Absolutely.
And so that's how that came about.
And so you've been doing fishing tournaments as a polygraph examiner for how long now?
Since 2005.
Okay. And that's when Bob Sinclair started the Virginia Beach Tuna Tournament as well, 20 years now.
And I have been doing his for that long, and then I've done so many others.
Very cool. So I just got to have the experience of being polygraph tested, examined. I feel like saying polygraph tested is like when a chiropractor says that you got cracked. They're like, no, you got adjusted, so we got to make sure we say the right thing.
Right.
So I just got professionally examined by you, and man, it was nerve wracking. Like the setup process, it's like, feels like you're getting wheeled in for surgery. There's all these like sterile things happening, and don't move, and this, that, and the other. So for somebody who's listening, that's like, man, what is it like to get polygraph examined? How does the polygraph test work? Could you break it down? How do these work?
Sure.
What are we measuring?
So, we're measuring your physiology in your body. Okay. That's flat out simple. We're going to talk about layman's terms. Okay. So I'm not going to really get into the true scientific basis, because then people would be they'll turn off your podcast. And so we don't want that at all.
Right.
But we're going to talk about the basic stuff, which is your physiology.
Okay.
Which means, what do we measure as polygraph examiners? We measure your heart rate. Mm-hmm. We measure your breathing. We measure your sweat glands. We measure your pulse. And if people do any kind of movement, we'll monitor that as well.
Got it.
And so that's mainly what we'll measure when we ask specific questions that either a truthful person or a deceptive person will answer. And then what happens is your brain, your physiology will react to those specific questions, and we're going to monitor that on the polygraph, and we'll see it on the charts.
And I heard it on your podcast, which for our listeners, what's the name of your podcast?
It's Inside the Polygraph with David Goldberg.
Yep. Great podcast. Bob Sinclair was on there. You cover some cool topics. You talk about, is it allowed in court? Why is it allowed in court? I listened to several and learned quite a bit. And one thing that stood out to me was you mentioned that you were 100% on your examination since you've begun. And we just did an examination for me. And you asked me at the end, how many questions did you lie on? And I said 2. And you said, yep, and I'll show you. And you were dead on the money. So it is cool to see that when the examiner is asking the questions in the right way, that the results are in fact conclusive. In your opinion, when you look at these, fishing tournaments and you're going to run a polygraph on an angler, how do you know what questions to ask the angler, or what are some of the typical questions that you ask the angler to determine whether or not they've followed the rules and or cheated in a fishing tournament?
Right. Well, that's a great question. First, you have to go through the promoter. Mm-hmm. Okay. And I always get up with the promoter, always. And I ask him, is there any specific questions you want me to ask on your tournament? That's number one. Number two is I always ask and see, what are the rules? What are the rules of that tournament? Mm-hmm. Okay. And so there are specific questions that need to be asked. Okay. And then there's sometimes some extra questions. And when I say extra, like customized questions that the promoter might ask.
Right.
So the main questions that would be asked are, were the lines in the water before the start of the tournament, and were your lines, not pulled out, after the official ending time. That's always. Yep. Did you use any inappropriate fishing means or methods to catch the fish on the tournament day you fished? Mm-hmm. Did you use, inappropriate or improper bait for your fishing? that you caught,
Mm-hmm.
or if I'm doing a tournament that actually weighs a fish, I might ask, did you place any weights in your fish when you weighed your fish?
Right.
I've done that before. Or did you use any improper methods to catch your fish? Where I've, caught people actually doing that before. So, or did you use backing methods to back into your fish, while, fishing. There are a lot of rules, obviously, to certain tournaments. So,
Right.
yeah, there's a lot.
So as you were talking about that, I'm picturing these different tournaments, and I'm curious. I'm sure a lot of times you've verified that everyone did their job perfectly right, followed the rules to a T, and everything's honky-dory. Here's your check. Merry Christmas. I'd like to know some stories of times that you've caught people cheating or caught people lying. Can you share a story or two of what they lied about or what the event was? Not the specific event, but tell me a story of when you caught somebody lying.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Yeah. This was a tournament, and I'm not going to tell you which tournament, obviously, but there was a tournament that I was at. Big money, obviously.
Hundreds of thousands.
Yeah, absolutely. Which I wish I could always get a part of, which I don't. But they used a new chair. It was a portable chair, which, I guess you could strap yourself in, which was not approved because you have to sit in the
fixed chair.
The fixed chair.
Got it.
This was not a fixed chair that they were sitting in. And so they caught the fish without using the fixed chair, which means they could move about.
Have an advantage.
Correct.
If the fish moves on one side of the boat.
And that's what they used.
Right.
And so they used it. It was hooked up to them. And so when I tested them, one of the questions was, because what happened was too, is I think a boat happened to be near them, used binoculars or whatever. And because, once you see a big, huge fish, either jumping out of the air, another boat is hooked up and you're thinking, wow, that's awesome. But then you're also looking and saying, curious, how are they catching that? We're right next to them. And so anyway, I think they reported somehow. They said, you might want to check on that boat. So when I did, and that was a huge fish that they did catch, and then the one question was asked is, did you use any unauthorized fishing methods to catch that fish? Of course, the angler said no. They showed a very strong reaction. Then I had to break it down even more because then I got word that they were using a chair that was not authorized. Then I broke it down to say, were you using an unauthorized, unapproved fishing equipment, such as a portable chair or whatever. Yeah. And then again, said no, failed. They did admit later, after the test, they failed. They lost, I believe it was $24,000. So you just think about that. That's a lot of money to lose.
Well, what I love about that story is that, yes, they lost $24,000, but the person who played by the rules was awarded that $24,000 that maybe wouldn't have been awarded had you not been there to intervene and discover the truth.
Well, yes, that's true.
Which is why you polygraph at a fishing
And that's why you do. And then what was sad is even though that person lost for the entire boat.
Oof.
That's what's sad too.
It is. Well, and I remember talking with, Bob Sinclair and asking the question of, do you really polygraph all your money winners? And he said, yeah, absolutely. He said, it's 9 times out of 10, it's a total non-issue. He's like, but it just ensures that everyone's kind of mindful of it. And so it's like bowling with bumper guards, and make sure that we get to the pin, so to speak. In your opinion, you've said you're 100% accurate. I just experienced 100% accuracy. Is there any method, whether that's like taking a certain drug or preparing yourself with yoga and breathing exercises or who knows what? Can you beat a polygraph?
That's a good question. I always get asked that. You cannot beat the polygraph instrument. What you can beat is an inexperienced, lackadaisical, or unprofessional polygraph examiner, without a doubt. And we said right here, I think you brought it up earlier on your podcast, what happens is if the person who's taken the test is being questioned and the examiner is not questioning them properly, and then they get tested, what happens is they could beat that examiner. because the questions were not properly formulated, or the examiner doesn't care. And so that's how people get past polygraph tests. Nervousness has nothing to do with it. You were nervous.
Oh, yeah.
You were absolutely nervous.
Yeah.
Okay. Matter of fact, you had to concentrate on your questions.
I think I got most nervous when you told me that there was a sphincter pad
That's
underneath
correct.
me. That I was fine with the keep your feet feet flat and your arms flat, cool. And then you're like, don't do anything weird with your sphincter. And I said, okay, I've never really prepared for that one, but got it. But yeah, it does make you nervous. But like you said, nervousness is not going to cause you to fail if you've got an expert examiner asking the questions.
And neither is medication. And I tell that, or medical conditions, because a lot of people will call me and say, well, I have AFib or I have, high blood pressure, diabetes. Is that going to cause it? Absolutely not. 100%.
In your experience with fishing tournaments, because you said you started back in 2005 polygraphing for fishing tournaments, it seems like the prize pools have done nothing but go up with inflation.
It's crazy.
Have you seen with the dollar amounts going up and bragging rights on the lines, there's a lot of ego in fishing tournaments. Have you seen an increase in lying, or has it stayed the same, decreased? Have you seen any correlation there between the money going up and the times that you've caught people not telling the truth?
I've seen attitudes change. I can absolutely say that. I've seen attitudes change. Sometimes I see the same individuals when I polygraph test them. So I keep asking them, what are they doing right?
Right.
Okay, where the other ones are not.
Yeah.
But they're still doing well on the polygraph. They're not doing anything inappropriate. But I'm saying, gosh, what are you doing right that these other, boats are not?
Right.
But no, they're not. I don't see any increase in fabrication or lying. Do I catch them? I can tell you that I catch about one every tournament, a liar. Okay. And what happens normally, and the promoters are pretty good about this, they're just like a professional examiner. We don't want anyone to fail. That's our job.
Right.
If a liar wants to lie or a deceptive person wants to deceive a test, we don't have to help anyone do that, okay? Right. But as a professional examiner, we want to ensure that someone tells the truth, okay, and passes. An innocent person passes. I think the promoters want the fishermen and the captains and all that to do well. So if someone on their boat fails, 9 out of 10 times, the promoters are going to send someone else that may fail to come back and take a test on the boat, so that they can give that boat another opportunity to pass. And that has happened.
That makes sense. And, earlier you said you would have loved to have been part of one of those $100,000 checks.
Without doubt.
You've got the perfect sampling of, who all the winners are. So you just need to go, take one of those guys to lunch or something, get a spot on the boat next time.
No bribes, no bribes. I take no bribes.
I'm kidding.
I know that, no bribes.
So it sounds like from your experience that for the most part, most anglers are honest. And I'm curious, in your experience thinking about fishing tournaments, has there been any other event or thing that you see happen that you're like, man, I wish this industry or this tournament or this organization would start using polygraphs that doesn't use polygraphs?
I think there are a lot of fishing tournaments that don't. I'm surprised that a lot don't. There are some catfish tournaments that do. There are, I noticed less and less rockfish don't anymore. There are other tournaments that I'm seeing that, like, the bass, you watch bass fish, they don't. It's just, word of mouth that, okay, but I've done tournaments where, you go out and fish, but how do you know they're not hiding them that day, the night before, and then going to their favorite spot, collecting them, putting them in their, water tank, and then saying, I caught it just now. It's all word of mouth. There are some tournaments, as you know, that do the GPS, which is great. And then you have to, take a snapshot of it, and that's good. Maybe that's why they don't. And then there are some tournaments that are small enough that they'll have actual people on the boat that are monitors or, but I think polygraph testing is important. I just really do. Yeah,
it seems like it not only ensures that everyone knows that they're playing in a fair fight, but it helps people to enter that fight with the mindset of like, let's plan to do everything the right way. And I'm sure in your career as a detective, you saw many times where anytime there's an opportunity to gain and there are not tight rules, human nature will often cause people to do the wrong thing.
Cheat, right?
To cheat.
To cheat.
Yeah.
Actually, that's the word, cheat.
We're opportunistic creatures by nature. And unless there's a boundary there to keep us going in the right direction, a lot of times, human nature, we do the wrong thing.
And you know what I hear too at these fishing tournaments? I hope I see you. To me. That's what they all say. Oh, I hope I see you. Because if they see me, they're getting a check.
Right.
And that's good feeling. They say, God, I hope I get to see the polygraph examiner.
Right.
Because they know they're in the money.
Mm-hmm.
And so that's where you know that they're on the up and up. They're excited. I want to get a polygraph test.
Yeah.
Even if they've never taken one, I want to go get one.
I remember last year talking to Captain Bill Pappas on Playing Hooky.
I've done Pappas.
I have. And he said he was like had gone home, and he got the call like, you got to come get a polygraph. And he goes, man, when I got the call that I was getting polygraph, he goes, I got so jacked up. He's like, the room turned electric. I couldn't wait to go see him. And I was like, because he didn't think that he had done anything. Right. And then sure enough, he had. So that was pretty cool. And I'm curious. I'm picturing a scenario where maybe somebody has actually intentionally cheated, and then they get caught. Do people ever go into straight up denial and almost get irate with you for proving them a liar?
Absolutely.
And how do you respond to that?
Absolutely. Well, as a professional polygraph examiner, of course, my law enforcement background, you have to be prepared for conflict. Mm-hmm. You just have to. But how you deal with conflict is based on training too.
Right.
So yeah, what's the first thing? And that's with any child, right? What's the first thing when you confront a child? They're in denial, right? Not to say that the fishermen are children, but I'm saying what I'm saying is it's denial.
We act like children sometimes.
But you catch someone in a lie, the first thing they're going to do is deny.
Yeah.
And then what's the next thing a person that's lying? They want you to prove that they're wrong, okay? So as a polygraph examiner, I need to prove that they're lying. And a lot of times, sometimes they'll stick, I didn't, no way. And then what happens is you have to prove it. And how you prove it is you sometimes give them an additional polygraph test. Say, okay, well, maybe you didn't fail. Maybe, just maybe you didn't.
Right.
Saying, okay, maybe I did make that mistake.
Right.
I know I didn't.
Right.
But maybe I did. I'm going to give you an additional polygraph test. However, when I do, shame on you if you really fail this. And they always go, come on, bring it on.
Yeah.
And then when they fail that next one, it is game on.
We were talking earlier today, and I posed the question of, what if somebody says, no, I'm definitely telling the truth. You know what? Go ahead and polygraph me. What is it that they're really saying when they say that?
What they're really saying is, believe me, I'm not lying. So it's psychological.
Okay.
It's psychological.
Got it.
9 out of 10 times when people say, I'll take a polygraph test, they're probably telling the truth 9 10 times. But that 1%, okay, is saying, I want you to believe me, so you let go of the situation and leave me alone. And I am a liar, but I'm hoping you're going to believe me.
Almost like a poker bluff.
Absolutely.
I'm all in. Polygraph me.
Right.
And they got 7 deuce offsuit.
Correct.
So 21 years as a detective, which I'm sure was times that were very traumatic to experience what you were having to, the content that you're having to look at, the people you're having to interview, and now 24 years of running a business, doing professional polygraph examinations. In your 24 years, what's been the hardest part of this job for you?
The hardest part of the job as a polygraph examiner, I'm going to say this, is to ensure that innocent people do well on the polygraph tests and that I clear their name. Because I ensure that my head goes on that pillow and I sleep good at night, knowing that I did not make a mistake and that I'm not falsely accusing anyone that they're a liar, or I let go of a child predator and that he's going to continue to perpetrate other children, or that someone has been falsely accused of, let's say, molesting their children or molesting a woman or whatever, and I call them, they did it when they really didn't. That's the hardest thing. And I get a lot of, women that have never said that they were a victim of a heinous crime before. And they are finally now at a time in their life or an age in their life where they are now say, I want to prove my integrity. And I say, okay, I'm here for you. Let's prove that, it did happen or it really didn't happen. And if it did happen, I want to be the first person in their life that says, you know what? It did happen. I'm sorry it happened for you. And I give them back their integrity in their life. So that's probably the hardest thing that I go through is I want to ensure the innocent is absolutely proven innocent.
Yeah, you're there present in those transformational or potentially horrific times in a person's life. As the truth is either revealed or some other thing comes out that, they're struggling to face. And now you're able to be there and offer them some peace and some solace. You were interviewing me earlier and I was a little bit nervous. You talked about the medication can't cause a false positive or you to fail.
False negative.
Nerves can't cause you to fail. But I'm curious, as you've interviewed people, depending on the content, have you ever been surprised by someone that failed or why they failed?
I've never been surprised of someone failing. I think I've been surprised as to what they've told me, and you still have to keep that straight face,
Right.
Like they'll come in, and they'll tell me all kinds of things and I've probably heard it all, but then there might be that one thing that they say and I go, oh, but I still keep that straight face, but it's like something I've never heard before maybe. And
catches you completely
it keeps me off guard. Right. But someone failing, no, I don't. One, I always go in with an open mind, always. And that's the difference between a professional and non-professional because I don't judge anyone.
You put your examiner hat on and you...
I don't judge. But the other thing is my polygraph examinations are, and my office is non-judgmental. And I think that's why so many people come to me and they talk to me because it is non-judgmental. Whereas, if a couple was going through something, a couple's going to be judgmental against each other.
Right.
When they come to me, and if they tell me they've cheated on each other or they hate each other, I'm going to say, okay, well, good for you, and then let's keep on going.
Right.
Because my job is just to get the truth so that they can get closure. Okay. Right. And I might be the very first person in my job, and in their life that they've ever told something, a secret. And that's what my job's all about. And the same and it's really true when it comes to the tournaments, when I'm the first person sometimes that some of these fishermen have ever taken a polygraph test. So they're elated, but they're also very, very nervous. Yeah. And I have to calm them down. And I do. I calm them down before the testing. And then when it's done and I tell them that they did very well, you should see just the elation on them and the relief. Excitement, yeah. And it's like, where's the party? Where's the party?
Right. And it's right there because Bob and his team put on that's the best part of the tuna tournament, the parties every single night. And I'm curious too, any advice for if I'm in the tuna tournament or a tournament where I'm going to get polygraphed and I get that phone call and I'm now stoked that I'm about to get polygraphed. Sure. Any advice for an angler that's going to get polygraphed for the very first time?
Yeah. One, don't be intoxicated. And I tell that and I do. I say that. And you'd be surprised that, people think sometimes, well, just like Mr. Pappas, he didn't, but, you don't think you're going to get that call. So you might leave and you might just start chugging down because it's hot out on that water. Yeah. It's been a long day. But I tell everyone, don't drink. Okay. So hold on until you know whether or not you're getting that call. So no alcohol. Not that I tell this to a lot of people, alcohol is not going to affect the testing. As a professional examiner, I'm not going to test you.
Got it.
So if you get called, and I've done this many times at the tournament, I smell so much alcohol on you, I'm going to turn you away. So now what happens is they got to call someone else on your boat. And if that delay happens, your boat might not get tested for maybe another day, which delays you either winning or what.
Right.
So don't drink alcohol. Caffeine doesn't affect it, so you can drink Red Bulls all you want. Okay, it just means you might be running in the chair, but I have to calm you down. The other thing is what I'm going to say, if you're just not in the tournament, let's say you're just regularly going to get a test, get enough sleep, okay, eat something prior to the test because a real test for a real serious matter can take up to 3 hours.
Oh, wow. And, it kind of goes back and points to the name of your business, Executive Protection. When I first saw that name, it actually threw me for a loop for a second because I was thinking like, armed defense or this, that, or the other. But as you started to share some of the stories of how you've intervened in folks' lives, I do see how it is protection. You're serving as a sort of guardian angel for some of these folks and these victims. So I think it's really cool what you do. It's been really cool to kind of learn how it works, dive into some of the examples of when people passed or failed. And it just gets me excited to see what you do in the future with the fishing tournaments and other things. And if folks are listening, and they're thinking about applications for professional polygraph examination, take tournaments aside for a second. Obviously, criminal things, civil litigation things. Are there other verticals or venues or places where you've seen polygraph be beneficial that folks that are listening might have not thought of as a way to use polygraph in their business or otherwise? Sure.
If you own your own business, let's say, okay, or you're even working for someone and you've been accused of, let's say, theft, sexual harassment, harassment at the work, and you didn't do something, you can take a polygraph test. That's number one. Or if you own your own business and let's say, and I've done this for many, many businesses, you're being accused by a client or a customer of, let's say, theft from in their home. Get your workers tested. You can prove that your employees didn't do it. Prove to the customer they didn't, because now they're making a false claim, maybe for insurance purposes. Your business is saved, and now it's fraudulent on their part.
Got it.
The other thing is for school. I've got parents that have said that the school teachers have, said that Johnny did this or Johnny did that or sexually harassed, Sally. Yeah. I've done juveniles. They can be tested, or even kids in college. The university will say that you've plagiarized, your paper. I've had parents get their students polygraph tested to prove that they didn't plagiarize and that the school just doesn't like the child, right. or the parent didn't pay enough, in tuition or whatever. Right. There's all kind. You name the issue, Luke, I have tested for. There's not one issue I have not tested for that can't be resolved.
That's really cool to hear. So it sounds like it's not terribly unaffordable. It sounds like it's kind of, something that folks have used several times for things, big or small. So
correct.
Does the pricing vary based on the issue at hand or time? How does pricing typically work?
Yeah, pricing is not based on time. It's just based on the issue.
Okay.
Okay. I will take, it doesn't matter, whatever the issue is, I will take, whether it's 3-5 hours. I've done a polygraph test that took 8 hours before, and I didn't charge any extra.
Got it.
Okay. So, and that's what I give people. So I don't care if I give you the price for the issue. Mm-hmm. That's the price.
Got it.
And I don't care if it takes 3 hours to 5 hours. I'm going to resolve your matter, and I'm not going to charge you any extra. I lose money sometimes more than I make,
right.
but I'm not there for it. I'm there to help someone.
Right. Executive protection. So I've got two final questions for you.
Go ahead.
One, you mentioned that you do love fishing. What's your favorite type of fishing to do?
Well, I haven't gone big fishing in a long time. I'll tell you, there's a story real fast.
All right.
When I was in law enforcement, a bunch of the buddies said, hey, why don't we rent a charter boat? We went charter fishing, and I'm a small framed kind of guy. So it was my time in the chair, and I just happened to hook a fish. Okay. It was a tuna. That tuna just wore me down. I'm telling you. So if anyone has never done tuna fishing,
right.
It's hard. It's not easy. I caught a fish. It was 55 pounds, okay, which is a nice size tuna.
That's bigger than any other tuna weight in the tuna tournament this year.
Yeah, it was nice size. Took me a long my arms were jello, okay, but that was probably 25 years ago. So I haven't done that kind of fishing at all. Right. I just like regular, just any kind of fishing, just getting on a boat or going on a dock or whatever. So I don't really have anything. You just cast a line and just fish. It's fun.
Yeah,
it's fun to me.
Absolutely. I think that's what gets us all hooked, is like that feeling of, putting a bait in the water and trying to trick the fish into eating your bait, and then boom, you're tight, and you hear that drag screaming, and it's all exciting.
That's it.
If folks that have been listening, their wheels are turning, and they're like, wait a second, I need polygraph services for my business or for my personal matter or for my criminal case or for my civil case. And they didn't know you existed, and you're right here in the heart of Virginia Beach, Laskin Road area. What's the best way folks can contact you and get set up with you for your services?
Sure. They can call me first if they want at 757-495-1301, or they can go online at www.executiveprotectiongrp, stands for group.com, or they can look me up on my podcast, Inside the Polygraph with David Goldberg, or they can go on TikTok, the David Goldberg.
Got it.
On TikTok, or they can find me anywhere on Google, and I'm here for them. No matter what the issue is, even just call me, the call is free, I don't, 24/7 is my phone number.
Got it.
And so I'll answer that phone call, and I'll talk to someone about anything they want to talk about.
That's awesome. Well, David, it's been a pleasure getting to talk with you and pick your brain and learn a little bit more about how the polygraph works, how it's integrated itself into fishing tournaments, why it's used, how it's proved the truth time and time again. Thank you, man. Thanks for coming on and talking to our listeners.
Well, thank you. I mean, this has been a pleasure for me and an honor that you allowed me to come on your fishing podcast, and I appreciate you letting me give you a polygraph test. So now you can write that off on your bucket list and tell all your friends that you've taken one.
Some of those questions were tough, man. I didn't know that you were going to ask me that.
Yeah, well,
I didn't know I was going to get caught lying either.
Yeah, I know, and you had to think about that, didn't you? Yeah. You had to think about which one was I going to tell the truth on and what, and I caught you.
You did, you sure did. And then even the one where I thought I was telling the truth, but you're like, no, just because you didn't say something out loud doesn't mean you didn't think it.
That's correct.
That was wild. Well, thanks for being on the show, folks. That's going to wrap up a really cool special segment talking with David Goldberg, Executive Protection Group Polygraph Services. Y'all stick around for a word from our sponsors, and we'll be back with you real soon. Hooked on fishing? Then you're part of the local community that Long Bay Point Bait and Tackle cares about serving and giving back to, providing you with the right selection for each season's target species. They're your one-stop shop to gear up with the best bait, tackle, and insider tips to catch your next trophy fish. You can fuel up right out front on the water and then chat with the crew inside for hot tips on where they're biting. So swing by today. Long Bay Point Bait and Tackle, where your fishing adventures start and finish with your trophy catch on their scales. The days of heading out and blindly looking for good fishing areas are pretty much over. Don't waste time and money on fuel searching for fish. What you need are the most recent, highest resolution images to not only know where to go, but where not to go. The knowledge provided by today's technology is critical when planning an offshore fishing trip. So make the choice that captains all up and down the East Coast make and choose Hilton's Real-Time Navigator. The easy-to-use interface and excellent customer service will have you on the fish every time you go. Check them out at hiltonsoffshore.com. All right, y'all, that's going to wrap it up this week. Please subscribe, rate, and review wherever you listen to podcasts. And remember, to get your free AFCO Camo Sunglasses Cleaner Cloth, text the acronym LCBFR to 779-345-2918 to get your promo code and be added to our email list so we can send you the new show each week. You guys keep on whacking them and be safe out there.